Hey, welcome to the last magic school of the year. Oh, don't worry, there'll be more. So we're wrapping up the series on power, and there's a lot of things to think about as we kind of finish this year. And I don't know how many of you were at the first one that we kind of started with, but when I initiated it, a lot of it was saying how there was going to be a lot of power plays this year, and to think about where does power come from, and to focus on empowerment instead of trying to take power from other people. Which, as you can see throughout the course of the year, that was a pretty major theme around the globe, right? All this kind of power scramble business that's still pretty much ensuing, bless you, and that we're still dealing with. The majority of the revolutions that went down this year, all pretty much centered around that theme. So when we close it off to think about power, I had mentioned about focusing on it coming internally instead of externally, but tonight we're going to think about where does power come from, right? What does that mean? How do you get power inside, and what generates it? How is it made in the universe, and what is its nature, right? I mean, because what do you guys think about when you think about power? Most people might think of like big buff dude, or like, tiger. I think of tiger. Or, usually people affiliate power with some kind of symbol like that has that kind of like it could mess you up a little bit. So there is this affiliation of power with destruction, right? I mean, what do you guys think? Powerful nation is something that probably has nuclear weapons, so they have power. Right? Our army is so powerful. If you say like, I'm so powerful, it's usually because you can exert that power onto someone else and they will be at your mercy, right? So I was really thinking about it, and it was very fascinating to me that power became so affiliated with destruction. Because if we look into the meaning of that word and where the idea of power comes from, it's affiliated with creation, right? If we do a little word nerding, we find out that power comes from podir, to do, or to act, or to make, or to create, right? To make something happen is what power is. So it's literally the act of creation is power. Now, of course, we all have to remember, creation and destruction go hand in hand, right? So you can't really separate creation and destruction. So we can't say, no, it's not destruction, it's creation. At the same time, we have to realize that both of those two things are very intimately connected, right? Which we talked about a lot in the sex and death lecture, right? Like, just think about your body. Think about how the spot on your body that makes babies is also where you pee and poop. That's like the best example I can think of. The relationship of creation and destruction is making babies and defecation are right next to each other. That's really the best way that God could have described it, is just look at your own body, right? So think about it in terms of that. Let's think about that. So when I say that power means creation, keep that in mind. The two, creation and destruction, are one thing. So do not only affiliate it with that power to destroy, with the power of weaponry, with the power of exerting it over other people, right? It's creation. So if we're going to look at power and where it comes from, then we get into this pretty big question, because that's, how was the universe created, right? If we're going to find out what universal power is, you have to find out how the universe was made. How was it created? Okay, so that's a big problem, right? That's something people fight about all the time. Every religion creation story likes to argue with every other religion creation story that there is. But what I always find interesting is look at all of them and see what's the same, right? So instead of trying to answer that question, let's just look at a little strain of how people explain that things are created, right? And we get a little cheat sheet as well, because we're all alchemists, so we have to remember that as above, so below. So if we want to know how the universe is created, we just have to know how we were created. And we get to answer that question, right? It's so fun when you know magic. You can answer all these crazy questions. So, if we want to know how the universe was created, first we can go to the good old Bible. So much good stuff in the Bible. And this is my Rashi Shumash. It's actually 5 volumes, but this is just the Genesis volume. It's the original Hebrew translation of the Bible, and then it has Rashi's commentary. Rashi is like the big rabbi from, I can't remember what year he was. Does anyone know what year Rashi was? Any Jewish nerds in here? No? What? I think he was like maybe BC something. So he has commentary, so it'll have every line of the Torah in Hebrew. Oh, that's my Scooby-Doo bookmark. Sorry about that. It'll have it in Hebrew and then in English, and then for one word, it'll have like all this commentary by the rabbi. Well, this word means this, and it was talking about this, and this was what it was actually doing, right? So if you really want to know the Bible, this is kind of the best thing, the Rashi Shumash. So, when the universe was created, it said, this is like what happened, what was going on. It says, now the earth was unformed and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God, which means that God has a spirit, first of all, hovered over the face of the waters. And that word hover is important, so think about this. God's Spirit hovered over the water. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. So basically you got darkness, total darkness, right? And then you have the Spirit of God comes in, and it just hovers there like this. And then he goes, light. And then there's stuff. So basically that's the story of creation in the Bible. How it starts to go, right? There's dark, and then there's a little light, right? And that's pretty much how it goes down. So, how does science explain the creation of the universe? You guys all know this, right? The Big Bang, right? Do you guys know what happens in the Big Bang? It's pretty fun to read about the Big Bang and how preposterous it really is. There's darkness, total darkness, nothing. There's nothing. And then, all of a sudden, that nothing aggregates around a point and causes so much density and concentration, but there's nothing. But that nothing gets denser and denser and concentrates, and then light. So it's like nothing, and then hover, and then light, and stuff, and everything, right? That's what the scientists say happened to make the world. That's what they say. That's their explanation. And everyone's like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. So that thing that makes the light from the dark is a black hole. It's a black hole. And that's even more fun to go on and read about black holes. Like, if you guys want to laugh a lot, you should read what the scientists say black holes are. It's pretty good. So the way that they define a black hole, this is what they say. A region of space-time. So you guys know space and time are one thing. We're going to talk a lot about science right now. If you don't like it, just plug your ears. Space and time are one thing. They're not two things. You don't have space and then you got time, right? This is what Einstein did. They're space-time. They're inextricably bound. You can't like separate the two. So if you're existing in this spot, you're all messed up in time. and you cannot extricate yourself from that situation. If you exist, you're in space-time, not outside time, not outside space. They go together, right? So, a black hole is a region, which is so arbitrary, of space-time with so much gravity, nothing can escape, not even light. And this is what they say in the thing. They say nothing can escape, not even light. Like they have to differentiate light from nothing. Interesting, right? Because light is what gets differentiated from nothing in the creation of the universe. There's nothing, and then there's light. But in a black hole, nothing can get out of there, not even light. Okay, so in case you missed it, the universe got created by a black hole that made light. But the way they define it is that nothing can get out of a black hole, not even light. Are you guys seeing what the problem is here? Okay, so there's a black hole that condenses and condenses and then it erupts and it makes everything, right? Which apparently in some moments all the stuff can come out too, right? So the black hole has so much gravity and force, it just sucks everything into it. Everything gets absorbed into it and nothing gets out. Unless it's the creation of the universe and then everything comes out of it. Okay? I know. You guys got to bear with me. It's not me that did this. It's a scientist. So, so then they'll explain, you guys know how a black hole is made, right? How they say? What happens?
Star collapse.
Star collapses. There's a star like the sun, and then it goes, oh, and it goes into a black hole. But at the Big Bang, there was no stars, right? So now we get into like the chicken and the egg situation. Well, if the thing that makes the thing that everything came from is light, how does that come out, right? So they make a little exception, and the scientists came up with this thing called primordial black holes, right? To distinguish them from regular black holes. In fact, there's actually quite a few different kinds of black holes that they've come up with. There's supermassive black holes, which are not like regular black holes, right? And then there's like charged black holes and not charged black holes. And then there's these things called primordial black holes, which totally sounds like a science fiction novel, if I ever heard one. So these primordial black holes, now that's plural, right? So I guess there can still be some primordial black holes hanging out, right? That are just existing there, right now, somewhere. There's primordial black holes. And these primordial black holes don't need a star in order to exist. They're just kind of there. So there's these dark spots with just huge aggregations of giant amounts of mass and gravity that were not formed by anything. They just exist. And that's where everything came out of, right? Now, when these primordial black holes explode, you get universes out of them. That's what happens, right? So it's kind of like, the way that I was thinking about it when I was reading about it is like, so you got the sun, and then it collapses on its gravity and it makes a black hole. So a primordial black hole is like the opposite. Starts on the dark side, and then it explodes, and then out come the suns, right? But what I don't understand is how scientists have in their brains made delineations where there's some of these and then there's some of those, but they're all different and they kind of exist in different space-times, right? Because actually they're all existing in the same space-time, because space and time, you can't pull them apart. So there's primordial black holes and the regular ones all hanging out together. You guys know what I mean? It's going in and out at the same time, right? Expanding and contracting. From out of that darkness is coming all these suns, and from the suns it's going into darkness. And that's kind of the situation that we're in the universe. So, if the universe was made from one of those primordial black holes, you just have to erase your brain and understand that there wasn't like a beginning of it, right? It didn't start. It's just an oscillating thing that always goes around, like an Ouroboros, okay? So you can think about our galaxy, the Milky Way. You guys know how the Milky Way started? Supermassive black hole, right? There was a supermassive black hole, there it still is, at 26 degrees Sagittarius. And this is very important because coming up on the 21st of December, you guys know what all this brouhaha is about December 21, 12? What's it about? You guys know? Planetary alignment with 26 degrees Sagittarius at the center of the galaxy, which is a supermassive black hole, right? And that's what a lot of the conspiracy theorists are, why they're saying there's going to be all this destruction. That all this destruction is going to result because there's this supermassive black hole and it's going to eat everything, right? But that supermassive black hole is what made all this stuff to begin with. It's where it all came out of, right? Creation, destruction, all so close together. So if you guys get freaked out about, possibly the world ending or all these apocalypse stories, you just have to understand that it's because people focus on destruction and they forget about creation, right? Again, just think about your body. If you can poop and pee and make babies at the same time, then all of those things can exist simultaneously. They're not separate from each other, just like those functions are not separate from your body. I promise you when you're giving birth you can pee, and it happens to a lot of ladies. I'm sure that's not what you really want to hear, but it's true. So then, okay, everything comes from a black hole. Where does the black hole come from? Right? We can't be lazy. We got to chase this down, get to the bottom of this power thing, right? So if a black hole is this aggregation of a huge amount of mass and gravity, okay, so we can, maybe like a star collapses and that'll make like the puny black holes or whatever. But how are these primordial black holes formed? How does all that insane amount of mass and gravity form? Well, they say that at the center of a black hole, there's this thing called a singularity. You guys have all heard about this, right? So a singularity is a point, or like a prick in the center, where that's where all the mass is in this teeny tiny little hole. It's also described sometimes as a ring. It makes a ring, right? Now, just think about for a minute a black hole and these scientists thinking, and in their head, they come up with a ring. How did they get that? How did they get that? You guys know? Where they're just hanging out saying like, what shape is it going to take, How did they get a ring? Or even a point? How do they figure that out? Why isn't it like a square or a sphere or a star or a pentagram or anything? A bunch of points. No, it's just one point or a ring. And that is the action point of the black hole. The singularity. This point that has all the mass and all the gravity. Right? So, now we have to kind of think about, unfortunately, more science. Again, I'm sorry. It won't be forever. Just bear with me. Mass. So you guys know what mass is, right? It's like what makes you weigh stuff. Like there's stuff. This has mass. There's stuff in it. Okay? So a black hole is like if we took everything in this room and we concentrated it into like a pinpoint on the floor. Like even the whole building took all the particles, everything, and just like super condensed it into a teeny tiny little ring. Like the Lord of the Rings. Like if someone put that ring on the table, and then that was everybody in here and the whole building, right? That's the mass. So now we gotta figure out, how does mass happen? Why would there be a big mass of stuff in outer space? There's nothing there. There's a vacuum. Nothing. All blackness is what they say, right? How do you have all that stuff? Pretty good question, right? Where is it coming from? Well, this is what the big to-do has been with the Higgs boson business. You guys all know the collider? This 17-mile super collider that they've wasted all this time on, and a bird flew into it and broke the thing one of the times they tried to make it go. So now this was the latest thing that happened, what was it, like July? You guys know? Yeah, it was like July, right? So they said, oh, we found the Higgs boson particle, which is what gives things mass. The Higgs boson particle, the reason they were all excited, is that's the thing that makes stuff, right? That's what makes all the stuff. Now, Peter Higgs, his name is Peter, right? Peter Higgs is the scientist that the Higgs boson particle is named after, which is so stupid, he has to put his name on it. And he was like crying when they found it. My name, so important. But they really didn't find it. They have evidence that they think might someday be interpreted to show that it could possibly be there. So like you read the thing, they found the Higgs boson particle, and then you keep reading and they're like, they got a little data, which maybe in 15 years they'll be able to figure out, might, suggest that the particle exists. That's actually what happened. Guys, this is, again, it's so funny to read this stuff. So they really didn't find the particle because you can't see it. It's dark. It's all black. You can't. It's like I see the black hole is kind of what they're saying when they say this stuff. But so this is where it gets really nuts. So they say there's a particle, and it's also been called the God particle. And that's what gives things mass. So there's a particle responsible for your entire 120 pounds or 160 pounds that you weigh. There's a particle that's doing that. That's making you here. This Higgs boson particle. Right? But actually, that's not true. It's not the particle. There is something making the particle, which they call the Higgs boson field. Okay, this is what, I'm explaining this because it's messing up everybody's consciousness and confusing everybody. Because we're thinking there's this thing that's making stuff, kind of like how you think there's a president that has power over you. He doesn't have any power over you. If you think Jesus has power to punish you for your sins, that is incorrect. If you think that there is a God particle making your stuff, that is incorrect. Okay? So if you can read this on Wikipedia, look up Higgs boson field. The way they explain this is hilarious, okay? They say there's a field, a force field, okay? There's a force field which contains all the potential energy of everything in the universe. And this is what happens. This is how they describe it. The Higgs boson particle passes through the field like a seed going through molasses and gets coated in the magic field and then comes out and has the coat on it and it bumps into other particles and gets the molasses on them. You guys get it? So, and that's why there's stuff. Right? Because this field is there, a particle goes through it, and then it bumps into other stuff and gets sticky stuff all over it. And now there's us. Okay? So this field is everywhere. There is not a spot where it is not. Okay? So, the first question I ask is, how does the particle pass through it? It's in it all the time. There's no passing through. It's always contained within it. It's the same as the primordial black hole and the other black holes not existing at the same time, right? This is something that is a constant situation, right? So, but now we're getting closer to the answer. We're getting closer to the answer. There's not like a thing that makes stuff. There's a force field that exists everywhere, where everything is all the time, and then sometimes it condenses and makes stuff. Now I know you say like a field, so what does that mean? Well, have you guys ever walked near like an electrical compound with those big like things where they have the, you can see like the electricity? Have you guys ever walked near one of those? And like your ears start to buzz and your hair kind of stands up? That's like the field that I'm talking about, right? You can feel it. It's a substrate. That's what gravity is. You have a gravitational field. We all have it. Somebody comes and stands, the closer you get to me, you're going to be able to feel me if you get within a certain distance. Okay? You guys are all standing over there, so you can hear my vocal field. My sound coming from my body is penetrating all y'all's fields right now. Right? There's field interpenetration happening as I talk. Now you guys can touch stuff and you are crossing the fields. Do you guys know there's van der Waals forces? I always like to talk about van der Waals forces. Van der Waals forces means everything you touch, part of your electrons come off on those electrons. And then you make you can make a little static electric field. Like how a balloon will stick to a wall. You guys know how that happens? The electrons are hanging out with the wall electrons and the balloon electrons are going like this. Blah, blah, blah. So the fields are intermeshing, right? The fields. Now, you can get, stronger and weaker fields, right? You get an electromagnetic field. It's so strong, if you put metal near it, it sucks it up, right? Just like you get a black hole field. It's so strong, you get close enough, you get sucked up, right? So that power has something to do with getting sucked into something's field. You guys know what I mean? If you believe that the president has power over you and you get sucked into that field, now you're in the black hole of the presidential candidacy, right? If you believe that Jesus has power over you and you get into that field, you get close enough to that field to get sucked into, now you're in the Jesus black hole, right? And you're just going to get sucked into it and absorbed where no light can enter, right? So this now you're kind of seeing like how that power can be destructive because it can just suck everything up into it. Okay, so let's say there's a field of someone who's just singing a very happy song. And you get sucked into that black hole, right? And you get so inspired, now you're going to go and write a song. Okay, now you just see how it's creative as well. So power and influence go both ways. Something has a powerful hold on you, you just totally got sucked into that field, right? With an inability to kind of escape. And this field is pretty much responsible for holding any possibility of anything that can take shape, ever. Us, cats, trees, it's all in this field hanging out until it gets sucked out and forms something, right? And that field is dark matter. You guys have heard of dark matter, right? That's what it is. The Higgs boson field, which he just slapped his name right on, like a jerk, is dark matter. It's not Higgs boson anything. And furthermore, dark matter is the same thing as ether. It's ether. You guys know who talked about ether? Madame Blavatsky and Annie Besant and all these theosophical people, right? If you go in the Secret Doctrine, she says the exact same stuff in her little chapter here that's, let me see, wait. It's called, sorry, I had my bookmark in this, but Life, Force, or Gravity. And it's on page 529 of volume 1 of the Secret Doctrine. And if you go on the Wikipedia page and you look at the Higgs boson field and you read this chapter, it says the exact same damn thing. Okay? And yet somehow we get to call it the Higgs boson field instead of the Madame Blavatsky field. Right? Although really, Madame Blavatsky yoinked it from the Vedas and the Indians. Okay? Indians, not like Native Americans, I'm not misappropriating that term. So, if you look in the Vedic literature, what's the creation story that they have in there? You guys know? Do you guys know what the word power is? Over there? I think this bookmark is right. Yeah. The word power in yogic terminology is Shakti, which is vagina, basically. A black hole, right? Shakti is the dynamic or creative principle of existence. So now we have creation, right? How is it that the word power etymologically in English means to create? And then if we go into Sanskrit, power means creation. Okay, see what's happening there? Okay, the dynamic or creative principle of existence envisioned as being feminine and personified as Shakti, the divine consort of Shiva. This concept is intended to explain how the undifferentiated singular, so like that singularity, right? Reality can produce the multidimensional. So that's like, how can you have a point and then it makes a bunch of stuff, right? How do you go from one thing to 10,000 things, right? That's the Chinese Taoist saying, from the one comes the two, from the two comes the three, from the three comes the 10,000 things. That's where I Ching comes from, right? In our bodies, remember I said we get to cheat? We're going to see how are we created? How are we created?
Cell division.
One zygote splits in two, splits in three, splits in 10,000 things. Okay? So this origin, this dark matter that kind of starts everything, has this force that decides to aggregate and condense, and then it goes zygote, right? So it goes from one into a whole bunch of stuff. It's in Vedas, it's a big vagina, Shakti's vagina, that makes all the stuff. From darkness. She's dark, right? Like how many of you guys have seen the black Kalis? You guys know what I'm talking about? Those black Kali moths? That's black hole. It's a black hole. It's the same thing. Dark matter is where the light comes from. So what I get confused about when I'm reading about black holes, they say nothing can escape a black hole, not even the light. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what do you think about when you think of escape? Right? You're like, no, don't take me in there. Like they're fighting to get out. They don't want to go in there, right? I don't want to go in the black hole. But what if it's not trying to escape? What if it's trying to go into it on purpose? Right? Like how people want to have sex on purpose. You want to go into the black hole. You're not, well, sometimes you try to escape it. But it's the idea, they have it backwards. It's not just that destructive force, it's also creation at the same time. Right? It's Shakti. Shakti. Shakti is the universal creative force. Kundalini is the individual aggregation of that. This is a really good little dictionary. This is one by George Fierstein. It's called the Shambhala Encyclopedia of Yoga. So it has such a good differentiation of Kundalini in here. Kundalini is power, but on the individual level, right? So Shakti is the big black hole. Kundalini is everybody's little black hole that lives inside of you. You guys all have a black hole that lives inside of you. You know? Do you guys know where it lives? It's in your sacrum. Inside of your bone of your sacrum is a little black hole. If you guys want to do a really fun meditation, you can think about your sacrum and think about a black hole in your sacrum. You'll feel something, I promise, in like 10 minutes, right? It's really good. So there's this dark matter everywhere that contains everything that we have in our own body, in your sacrum. There's that little black hole containing everything that you can kind of open and get access to and make stuff. You guys know, how many of you guys have given birth? Okay, what happens when you're in labor? You're the only one? Jeez, where's all the moms? Come on. Baby haters. Okay, so...
Everyone's got dogs in this town.
I know, right? Cats. You guys are all cat people.
I know.
Okay, so I'll tell you what happens when you're in labor.
You know.
An extraordinary pain in your sacrum. The contraction, I know it's the worst to even think about. When the contraction starts, you're not just having your muscles contract. You guys know what happens? It's like, oh my God, my back is going to volcano. Right?
Oh my God.
I don't even know how to describe it except volcano in your sacrum.
I lost consciousness.
Yeah. And so when you're giving a birth, your black hole in your sacrum is opening. Right? That's what's going on. So if you think about how that translates, I mean, for me, I think, well, okay, let's say I'm a black hole. And I'm giving birth, and that creation is happening, and the destruction at the same time is simultaneous, right? Simultaneous. Not separated into two separate things, right? So then we can think well, what's the ring? What's the starting point? What is that singularity? What does that mean? There's a point or a ring. Well, so this gets really interesting because in other Bible lore, there's the vision of Ezekiel. Are any of you guys familiar with the vision of Ezekiel? It's such a good one. You should read about it because it's great. So Ezekiel is a prophet, and he was this is not that long ago. This is 592 BC. Okay, 592 BC. Buddha was 600 BC, just to give you an idea. So it's Buddha's alive when this happens near Iraq. It was near Iraq that Ezekiel was. Ezekiel sees heaven part. He sees heaven part, and he sees behind the scenes. He sees God. He sees what's creating the universe. Do you guys know what he sees?
A wheel.
Rings. Rings. If you guys go on Google, it's a wheel, but it's a ring. Go on Google and look up Ophanim. Ophanim is the angel that's at the base. Right? There was Ophanim, cherubim, and then the throne of God in the vision. The Ophanim, which Oph means serpent, of course. So it's basically these arubarai. I don't know if that's a word, but I just made it. So, but you guys know there's 5 of them. There's 5 rings. They're all, I know, we totally figured this out, but it's so good. There's 5 rings. We were drinking this beer called 5 Golden Rings, and I was like, 5 golden rings. But then I was like, oh my God, that's in the vision of Ezekiel. There's 5 golden rings that are intertwined, and it looks exactly like the Olympic rings. You guys know the Olympic rings? That's the Ophanim. They're the same thing, right? So there's these rings that are interlocked, and they're at the base. They're what are making it go. So you guys know what happens next. There's the cherubim. The cherubim are these crazy, scary monsters that are ox, lion, eagle, man. They have 4 faces, and they have all these wings and all these eyes. And what's above them? There's hovering the throne of God. So here we have this hovering business again, right? So when I'm thinking about what are these rings and what is, like, how is that tied into creation? Somehow it's playing an important part, right? Because we're seeing them inside the black hole. Ezekiel sees them for what's responsible. And then there's this, like, hovering business. So if you look up hover, that word actually means heave. It comes from heave, which is like heaven, which means raise or lift up. So when you hover, you kind of like, you just kind of float, but you're not flapping, you're not moving, but you're floating, but you're still, okay? So it's hovering is this predicament of kind of moving, but you're not moving, okay? So you're like hovering, but you're staying still. And this word hover in Hebrew is wind of God, or Ruach Elohim. The Ruach Elohim is this big concept in Judaism, which is like breath of God. The other places that it happens is when God puts Adam's soul into his body. The Holy Spirit, or Spirit of God, comes down in it. This is how it says. It says it hovers over Adam, and then it goes, and then he's alive. Creation, right? So here we see it's happening again in the creative act. Because he just gave Adam his soul by hovering, stop, then it goes. Okay? The other place that it talks about this Ruach Elohim is when Mary gets impregnated with Jesus. So you guys know God makes Mary pregnant, right? I don't know why they don't talk about that more. Do you know how that happens? This is how it's described. The Holy Spirit comes down and it hovers over Mary, which is super creepy. You can imagine, like, Mary just hovers over you and then it goes, ha. And then baby Jesus, right? So there's something about this hovering business that is causing creation, okay? So now again, we're getting a little closer here. We're trying to figure out what is power, how do things get created, okay? So now, so far, what do we got? We got this field, we got a field, we got these rings, and then we got this hovering, and then we got this, like, action, this breath. So those are the components that we've kind of collected so far. So if you guys want power, you got to have, like, this recipe. Because this is what you're going to need. So this hovering is, like I said, it's like you're moving, but you're not moving. And if we think about dark matter, and how does stuff come out of dark matter? You guys know? It's called 0-point energy. Are you guys all familiar with that term, 0-point energy? Okay, this is another thing. I don't understand why they don't teach this in school. It's on Wikipedia, and they don't teach anybody, and all the kids don't know what 0-point energy is. 0-point energy means something is not moving at all, has no charge, but all the energy of the universe is contained in that spot for extrication. Do you guys understand what that means? That means in the field that's everywhere is all the energy for everything you could possibly make. And all you need is an aggregator to collect or draw the energy out, like a lightning rod. It's like if all you needed was a lightning rod and then you could make the lightning come to it. So it's not even like you needed a storm. You don't even need a storm because the lightning is in the air, which is actually true. There is actually lightning in the air all the time. So that's a good analogy. It totally makes sense. So it's like there's lightning in the air everywhere, and you get an aggregator and a point, and then, whoo, the lightning comes. You guys all know who was able to figure this out, right? They say on Wikipedia that Einstein figured it out. Makes me so mad, because you guys know what happened. Nikola Tesla figured it out. Do you guys know who one of Nikola Tesla's students was? Einstein's wife. Einstein's wife attended Nikola Tesla's lectures where he develops this information. And then Einstein took it from her, and then he made general relativity. Again, just like Mr. Higgs, gotta slap your name on that, son of a gun, okay? But the difference, I'll tell you what the difference is between Einstein and Tesla. Einstein said it, but he didn't do anything, he didn't make anything. Tesla made all kinds of stuff to say, here, look, I'm doing it. Here we go. 0-point energy is this. Watch me make lightning come out of the earth. Did Einstein make lightning come out of the earth? No. Did Einstein make an alternating current engine? No. What did Einstein make? Nothing. He made formulas and math that he stole from other people. So 0-point energy, the best way to describe it is what Tesla did. It's when you take an aggregator and then you make all the energy come out of nothing. Out of nothing. Right? And this, again, we have to fix our brains right now. Right now in this room, I'm going to fix your brains, okay? Do you guys think there is nothing in a vacuum? Do you guys think there is nothing anywhere? No. There's this field full of everything everywhere. Not nothing. And this goes back to the definition of black. Okay, we're thinking about black holes. And what does the word black mean? What is all the colors together? Black. Does that mean black is nothing? It's everything. Inside of black is all the colors. The word black actually means to shine. To shine. Or give off light. Right? Like a shiner, like when you guys get a black eye, you shine. Black is not nothing, it's not empty, is not, vapid. It's everything. And for those of you guys that are savvy with alchemy, they say that everything comes from the prima materia, which is black primordial matter. It's dark matter. It's black holes. The black hole and the dark matter are the prima materia of the alchemists. But black is not nothing. It's everything. Everything. All potentiality for everything is in the dark matter, which is all over the place at all times. That's why you can have stories of magicians that make something from nothing. Right? Do you guys know like how a magician, like those stories of how you just make something appear? How would you make something appear? We'll have a little magic lesson right now. If you guys wanted to make like a flower appear on the table, how do you think that would happen? It's easy. If you know how to aggregate the dark matter and condense it enough to get the form which is contained already in the ether, you can go ahead and make it. Right? What do you guys think makes black holes? Concentration. Concentration. Remember from the other lecture, what does concentrate mean? Center is a point, it's a prick. Like when you take a compass and you make that prick with the compass, that's where the word comes from, right? So you concentrate the center and then you make the hole around it. That's how a black hole is formed. You get the prick and then you get the ring. You get the ophonym, those rings at the bottom, they aggregate around the center that hovers. What's on the top of a compass? The hand of God hovering over it, making it go. Right? Just like the vision of Ezekiel. So you can think about it like that, that there's this thing above that's making the center mark, and then it follows around like a ring. What do you guys do if you're going to do magic? You make a circle. You make a circle. What is Stonehenge? To make a circle, right? So that ring is what you do when you want to create stuff. That's the creativity ring. And the thing that you're doing is you're making your little God compass and making that little circle and invoking that power of creation, right? You're making it happen through that action, that recapitulation of the creative act. And the idea that you can get something out of nothing, that you can get light out of darkness by just concentrating on it. I mean, what does that mean? How many times have you guys concentrated on something and then it aggregates? Maybe it doesn't appear out of thin air. Maybe it's like 2 months later or like a year later, or what do you guys think happened? Oh, you just made a black hole. When you concentrate like that, you just made a black hole to attract to you like a cat or your girlfriend or some money or a song through concentration. The reason there's this field, why would anything come out of the field? Because there's something concentrating it, so it gets so dense, and it gets denser and denser and denser, and then pop! Light. You're hovering over it, you're lingering on it, not quite moving on it, and then pop. That's how creation happens. You have to hover, you concentrate, you get still, you make a point, and then you make a ring. So that's where power comes from. Okay? From that very action, from making light out of darkness or making dark into light. Remember, it's both ways. They're the same thing. And this was so awesome because I was reading all about this, and I was reading about black holes and how they suck things in and the event horizons. And before I came here, I asked the I Ching. I asked the I Ching a question. I said, I Ching, what is universal power? You guys know what I Ching answered? So crazy. It answered hexagram 36.2. Okay? Hexagram 36, I printed out this little thing that I had on the website because I was freaking out so bad I couldn't even handle it. In hexagram 36, the name of it is Ming Yi. It indicates the light of the sun below the horizon. The light is wounded or exterminated, leveled. Did you guys see what that just said? Hexagram 36 is the sun going into the dark. The sun getting sucked under the horizon. You guys know a black hole? Do you guys know what happens when the light disappears? It's at the event horizon. This is exactly what it just said. The point where the light gets sucked into the dark. That's what the I Ching answered me with. So crazy. Then it gets even crazier because the character, the picture of it, is a black bird that hovers. What? The picture of the stupid Chinese symbol is a bird that hovers still. A black bird. Oh. So I was like, okay, I'm totally right. So you guys can know that all the information presented here this evening was entirely correct. So it was verified by the I Ching. So in the line, in 36 is wound. It's literally called wounding of the light, or when the light turns into darkness. The question, remember, was what is universal power? Okay? So it's when the light disappears into the dark. It's the event horizon. The power is the point where the light goes into the dark. And that's where the action happens. Okay? That's what it is. So that line, point 2, is about being prepared for a disaster and not allowing yourself to succumb to it. So even though there may be darkness, do not allow the darkness to take you over. That's what universal power is. Right? Don't get sucked in to anybody else's event horizon. Don't get sucked into anybody's field, right? That was a pretty good answer, I feel like. And it has this thing to do with the hovering as well. And I was thinking about that too, like how could you translate that? So to me it was like stay still. So if you are like about to get sucked in somebody's weirdo little vortex, just hold up a minute, right? Just hover, concentrate on it a little bit, and then the light will reemerge from it. Because it doesn't just go one way. The black hole makes the universe. So don't just think of power as destructive force, as black holes as destructive force. As we go into December 21st, right, when everything goes into that spot, what are you guys going to think about? Are you going to think about, oh my God, we're all going to die? Right? Are you going to think about, oh my God, this Shakti is the creative force, the power of the universe. And how am I going to open my own black hole inside my body in order to have that be with me and use my kundalini, my personal Shakti, my own power? How am I going to unleash that without putting it on to other people, right? Because you don't want to suck other people into your field and absorb them. Then they just hang around with you forever, right? So when you think about what is power and where do we get it, you make a point and you concentrate on it, you make a ring around it, and then you hover over it. You watch it, right? So you do those 3 things on December 21st, and you'll be able to concentrate the power of the universe. Okay? That's your homework. Pretty good, right? That's what I have for tonight. Thanks, you guys. Yeah?
Next year, do you have a lecture series planned?
Oh, yeah. We'll keep going next year. I'll put out the thing on Facebook. I know I always put it on Facebook. Sorry. But yeah, I'll announce it later this month. So they'll continue to be on the second Sundays at 6. Yeah. Thanks, Justin. Questions? Any other questions? Yeah.
Briefly, how does the analogy unfold if all the colors are contained in white?
Right. It's because it's the same thing.
So how would you?
Right? And that's the thing. Okay, so how do you separate what light and darkness is? And that's in the, okay, so in Rashi Shumash, what happens? Everything's dark, and then God says there's light, and then there's light and dark. Right? So it's from one thing or all things. So it's just the reverse. It's exactly the same, but the opposite. Right? If all the colors can come out of black, light can show all the colors. Right? So you get light, and then you can see the colors, whereas black contains them in their potential form. Light's the trigger, the release. Does that make sense?
And how would you connect that to the idea of this?
Oh, yeah, it goes both ways, right? You can't just sit around in, like, hoping that, you have to do.
I think I'm interested in what your actual...
Yeah, totally. No, it's through action. Action. You got to do it. You have to actually make the point, make the circle. You have to do it. You can't just think about it. You cannot just concentrate it. You have to do something. So that's like ritual or action or sing or do something. And that's what aggregates it into a viable, real thing in the world. Totally. Anybody else?
I heard a great take on the whole something out of nothing concept recently. And this also came from a rabbi. But his whole point was that, in order to be somebody, first you have to be a nobody. Which was really interesting because it's kind of like stripping your ego in order to gain enlightenment, or like starting a business from scratch, those kinds of things.
Yeah, everybody should be a waiter or waitress for a while.
Yeah.
It's true. I couldn't agree more. There'd be a lot less jerks if everybody had to do service for at least some point in their life. Yeah.
I thought that Stephen Hawking had discovered that actually heat particles come out of black holes.
So, I mean, he didn't discover that. Again, come on. Do you think he really discovered that? It's in the base. No, so there's no light. Black holes make heat. That's true. But this is something that they've been saying for quite a while, because it's energy, okay? There's energy generated. So what forms do energy take, you guys know? Light, heat. It can take all these different forms. Kinetic, potential, 0 point. Energy gets expressed in all those different ways, not just one thing. Right?
So how come the light can't escape, but then heat can?
This is what I'm saying. The light does escape when it goes creative. It's not just a one-way hole. It's a two-way hole, right? I know that that's what they're saying, but it's not true. Look at the Big Bang Theory. Clearly, it comes back out. It goes in and it comes out. Both.
And the thing that causes it to come out is the hovering?
That's all I can figure out, right? I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? That's what I pieced together. Yeah, Becky.
Well, it seems like in the each thing,
Yeah.
like that's interesting, especially approaching this time where it does feel like I don't know if you all feel, but it feels like a kind of pressure, right? It's like intense psychic pressure. So
It's condensing.
right, it's like condensing. So it's interesting that the I Ching would say prepare for whatever disaster, but it seems like maybe the point of like power, the ability that we have is to make the choice to like be still, concentrate, and that the disaster maybe could come from just the refusal to make that choice, or the lack of consciousness about that choice. So it's like that actually like making the still point, allowing ourselves to like to receive, or to to transform or create, open to that. Like it keeps the energy flowing, but without that action.
You have to do something, man.
Yeah. Well, that's then the energy, like that's when you get, that's when the energy like is destructive.
Yeah. I think that's very true. Anybody else? No?
When you were talking about the white, what came to me is, and with the heat and the energy, is the expression of.
Yeah. Like, how is it going to come out?
The expression of the energy.
Yeah. There's all this potential energy, like a sneeze, right? You're sitting there, you're totally cool, and then all of a sudden you sneeze. That sneeze is like 100 miles an hour or something. So that ability for your lungs to produce a 100-mile-an-hour sneeze is like a latent black hole that just all of a sudden goes kapow, right?
Or an orgasm.
Same thing. Stored potential energy. Obviously, you can feel a big difference between when you orgasm and you're not orgasming, right? But that orgasm is latent inside your body all the time, just ready for, a little something. And then something happens, and then it's released, right? So that's how it is in the field. It's the sneeze waiting to happen. It's that thing waiting for a lightning rod to set it off, right? But that's exactly, it's potential energy that's latent, waiting for an action to trigger it. Waiting for the hover, right? For the breath. Yeah, the Ruach Elohim.
Pendulum swinging, so it's the retraction and then expression.
It's both. It's the expansion and contraction, both together at the same time, which is the standing wave. Simultaneous. Not one or the other. Both.